Well, let me start tonight with the big breaking news that's just coming in at the moment. A day after the government announced a new surge pricing scheme for trains, there is now a decision that has been taken to review the entire system. The centre says it will do a complete reality check on the flexi fare system after 3 months. This 24 hours after facing all-round criticism, the railway is now describing the move as an experimental one. Remember, the introduction of surge pricing on premium trains like Shatabdi and Rajdhani had meant that passengers would be forced to shell out nearly 1.5 times the earlier fare. That's the big breaking news that's coming in. This also at a time when the government has decided that railway ministry officials will have a committee that could merge the rail and general budget. A formal decision likely within a month. Let's look at our top story tonight on just why surge prices in railways has become such a political hot potato.
Will be actually getting benefit.
7 months ago, he promised that there would be no fare hike for rail passengers. Today, rail fares have been hiked, and the railway minister did his best to evade India Today's cameras.
Just one small reaction on what basis the railway fare has been increased. One small
Did I call you?
So we need to ask you for that.
The fare hike, which comes into effect Friday, stings those who travel by AC 3rd and AC 2nd classes. Tickets will be costlier by anywhere up to 50%. The fare hike is applicable on all premium trains like the Rajdhani, Shatabdi. The first AC and executive chair cars have been spared the hike. The hike also does not impact sleeper class passengers. This backdoor hike has been termed surge pricing.
Incentivizes early bookings. Book first, get the best price. And if you book last, you will get the costliest ticket, and that's exactly what it means. Every 10% seats, sold prices now will go up to 10%. Fares to Rajdhani, Shatabdi will be costlier. Prices capped at 1.5 times at the base, and even half-empty trains will now cost you more.
Come tomorrow, if you're traveling on a Shatabdi or a Rajdhani, or for that matter a Duronto Express, you may have to shell out as much as 1.5 times of the base fare. The government has come up with something called surge pricing, that with 10% of the tickets booked, you may have to shell out 10% of the base fare.
The air prices will match a train travels, for example, from Mumbai to Delhi. So why should we spend 18 hours in a train when we can reach Delhi in 2.5 hours?
More important, the cleanliness and the toilets. That is very important for a woman when she's traveling on the train.
Increase in railway prices is not new for all the Indians, right? But my appeal to the government is that let it be always reasonable so that people can afford to.
This surprising move by the Modi government has also set off a political firestorm, with both opposition and allies demanding an immediate rollback of the decision. Passenger services are currently a big financial hole for the railways. While the surge pricing model may be a major reform economically, politically it's a quagmire that the Modi government must negotiate in the next few days, especially in the lead up to the festive season. Bureau Report, India Today.
So is railway surge pricing anti-consumer or not? Joining me now is Mohammad Jamshed, Railway Board Member Traffic, the man really who's been in charge of this entire pricing policy. Also joining me from Chennai is S. Pushpavanam. He's the Secretary Consumer Protection Council in Tamil Nadu and expert on railways. But first you, Mr. Mohammad Jamshed, when I look at the numbers, Delhi, Mumbai, Rajdhani hike 41%. Delhi, Bangalore, Rajdhani hike 40%. Delhi, Howrah, Duronto hike 43%. Delhi, Chandigarh, Shatabdi hike 32%. Is this not a steep hike, particularly keeping in mind that the festive season is about to start?
Rajdip, this flexi fare system that we have introduced, which will be introduced from tomorrow morning, is nothing new. In fact, this is not that for the first time we are doing a fare rationalization. This we had already done, in fact, last year, where we had introduced Suvidha kind of fares. I mean, these were also dynamic flexi fares on special trains which were being run from one point to one point. And these were the kind of fares which were purely dynamic and were going up to 3.9 times of the original base fare. What we have done in this flexi fare of these three groups of trains is also that we have capped that at 1.5. So it does not go beyond 40% and 50%. That is the peak that we are talking about.
But some will say 40% is a fairly steep hike. And the question then, Mr. Jamshed, will arise, what was the motive? Was it to mop up more revenues? Because from what I can see, all you're mopping up, as per your own estimates, is about 500 crores, when you actually need far more to get the railway books in balance.
You are absolutely right. We need far more than what will be generated out of these flexi fare system. I mean, this is not on. We, in any case, as I could give you a larger picture, is that the net loss on the passenger services on Indian Railways is to the tune of 33,000 crores every year. At the same time, we are also making huge investments in passenger amenities in terms of infrastructure and buying of rolling stock and improving the passenger amenities. Passenger amenities alone, we will be spending about 1,800 crores this year compared with about 1,200 and 800 crores in the previous years. In fact, I would like to tell you that in this kind of a scheme, I have done away with, in fact, we have done away with the extra 30% which was being charged earlier on Tatkal tickets. Now, Tatkal special surcharge will not be there for AC2 and AC3 passengers.
Let me get it, Mr. S. Pushpavanam, because Consumer Protection Council is among those who are protesting against surge pricing. You're hearing from the member traffic who's saying this is an attempt, in a sense, to bring some rationality to fare structures. How do you respond, Mr. Pushpavanam?
This comes a bolt out of the blue, and it's outside the railway budget. Now that they are going to merge the railway budget with the union budget, I think all through the year they will keep raising fares. This is certainly exploitation of demand and misuse of monopoly status. See, public sector railway is supposed to be a model service provider, and they can't behave like an auto rickshaw driver during rainy days. Exploitation of demand. Yeah,
the member traffic is saying A, financial help, B, importantly, is saying passenger amenities.
Yes.
If you want to pay for passenger amenities,
railways
then
do need
if you
money.
want better passenger amenities, you've got to pay for it.
Yes, railways do need money. They need a lot of money to implement Sam Petoda's committee's recommendations and in Anil Gadkar's recommendations, and to complete the already sanctioned projects. They need 8 lakh crores and more. And what they are going to get from this step is only 500 crores. It's peanuts. This is not the way to raise money. See, if they want money, they must cut cost, particularly the 53% staff cost. And,
one minute. 53% staff cost, if the railway started cutting, there would be another form of revolt, this time from the railway employees. But let me bring in Mr. Jamshed. I think the concern is, Mr. Jamshed, which Mr. Pushpavanam is making, is this is not going to be one time. Flexi pricing means through the year you will be having price hikes. Plus, you now are in a situation, as I can see, where if I travel by a budget airline, I will actually pay less from Bombay to Delhi than if I have to travel by train. So you may actually lose customers, you may lose passengers who will prefer now to travel by plane than travel by train. You'll cost more traveling by train to Bombay from Delhi.
For any organization, for any department and for any business, if I'm charging only 36 paisa per passenger kilometer for taking a passenger for a kilometer, and my costs are 73 paisa per passenger kilometer. 33,000 crores of losses on the passenger business. At the same time, we are not going to recover all this money out of these kinds of fare hikes that you have been indicating. But what we are doing, we are at the same time also investing huge amounts. And not only huge amounts, we are also looking at non-fare revenue generation through different kinds of models, from advertisement to the parcel segment. This is what is already being done. As far as the comparison with the bus fares and also with the civil aviation airfares are concerned, I think there is some kind of an environment, in fact, which is not a very correct kind of a picture when we talk about 2,000 rupees ticket for an airline. I was looking at some of the figures on today's internet. If you find that in a busy season like 6th of October, for example, if I have to go from Delhi to Calcutta, the Rajdhani fares, the revised Rajdhani fares on the flexi side would cost me for a second AC ticket between 2,800 to 4,100. I mean, that is the range.
Right.
I'll continue to keep the same range. Whereas the airfare today is costing 5,800 to 20,000 rupees for Calcutta on 6th of October.
But can you...
And this is the same situation in all the sectors that we have worked on.
But how will you respond to the criticism that will be made that the railways ultimately are a public utility? They are supposed to be ensuring that they provide services for the public at the cheapest possible rate. I think the fear has been that people have got so used to the fact that you don't hike passenger fares, Mr. Jamshed, that now when you've gone in for flexi pricing, people are wondering what's happened to the good old Indian railways. I think that's part of the problem. We are used to having railways giving tickets. There's no fare hikes during budget, certainly.
Very recently, in fact, a couple of months back, we started printing on the railway tickets, the reserved ticket and the unreserved ticket, that how much of this is the cost which is being realized by the railways. It's just about 36% to 46%. At the same time, we have to look at the business aspects. We have to generate the kind of resources which are required for the infrastructure, for taking care of all our requirements. Railway Ministry is the only ministry which takes care of all its requirements out of the revenue that it generates. I have been generating 2/3 of my revenue out of the freight traffic. Around 1,17,000 crores is the target this year. And I have been generating only 1/3 of the revenue out of the passenger operations. This year it's going to be targeted at 51,000 crores. We are already working, we have always been cross-subsidizing, in fact, by raising the freight rates and becoming uneconomical as far as that is concerned.
Let me therefore get a final word then from Mr. Pushpavanam. Here you've got the member traffic saying at the end of the day, this is a necessity. If the railways doesn't do this, they're going to financially collapse sooner or later. It's not about the 500 crores, it's about the principle at some stage that you can't constantly cross-subsidize, you can't constantly run the railways to the ground because passengers get upset with the slightest fare hike.
Vivek Debrai report says they created 17 zones out of 9 zones and the efficiency did not go even up by 1%. They are trying to help themselves. Why should I pay for that? You reduce the zones and then cut cost. Then you have enough revenue.
Okay, so you're saying make the railways more efficient, make them more cost efficient rather than passing the burden on to the consumers. Well, we leave it there. Mr. Jamshed, thank you very much for joining us.